You guys loved when we did this last time, so for this video, we're visiting two of the most famous roads in the West, Utah Highway 72, which is literally like a racetrack through the aspen trees, and Utah Highway 12, which is literally where they filmed the Coyote and Roadrunner cartoons. So let's get to it. How to trail brake on public roads safely. Go down to the comments right now and look. I guarantee you're going to find someone who says that trail braking is a racetrack-only technique and it should never be done on the street. Well, if you ask them what their definition of trail braking is, honestly, they're right, because most people's definition of trail braking is so wildly wrong that not only should it not be done on public streets, it shouldn't even be done on the racetrack by professional riders. And we're going to talk more about this in a minute. But the other bit of advice that you're going to see down in the comments is never brake in a corner, which sounds great, right? Until you start thinking about it. Never brake in a corner is this wildly impractical bit of advice. It has no consideration for downhill corners, freeway off-ramps, blind corners, things blocking the road like a cow, or even random slippery things like a cattle guard in the middle of the corner. However, we can take that bad advice, never brake in a corner, and turn it into really good advice by adding one word. Instead of never brake in a corner abruptly. So the next time you see the advice, never brake in a corner, in your mind, add that last word, never brake in a corner abruptly. So how do we trail brake on public roads safely? Let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. Step by step, this is what we need to do. As we approach any corner, when we feel like it's time to roll off the throttle and reach up and sneak on the front brake. We don't grab the brakes, we sneak on the front brake. Those first few percentage points of pressure are extremely important. It allows the weight to shift over the front tire. This is where we would change gears so that we're in the gear that we think we want to be in for the exit of the corner. How much we shift, or even if we downshift at all, depends on the specific corner. But we want to be done shifting before the corner. And here's the important detail. Make sure the clutch is out. Leave the clutch out. And another important detail, leave the throttle totally closed. This sounds more complicated than it is. It's basically just slowly easing off brake pressure. Super duper slow and gentle. Trail braking, by definition, is trailing off front brake pressure as motorcycle lean increases. That's it. There's no mention of apexes or braking later or going faster, and there's especially no mention of overlapping throttle with front brake. We don't push the throttle against the front brake. Trail braking is about braking. Now, we can all agree that how we ride on the track and how we ride on the street is different. And for sure, trail braking can be used to great advantage to be faster on a racetrack. But on public roads, fast isn't necessarily our goal. Now, I've been doing this for about 25 years now, professional coaching. And riders who are taught the slow look press and roll method, or the brake gas turn method, or the slow look roll press method, there's such an emphasis on rolling on the throttle at the beginning of the corner that a large number of riders come away with the misconception we have to be fast in the corners. Public roads are so variable that outside of a few specific instances, accelerating throughout the entire corner is extraordinarily risky. How are we supposed to know what a suitable entrance speed is that allows us to accelerate throughout the entire turn? I mean, how slow is slow enough? Whoever said, do all your braking before corner tip in, probably never spent much time riding in the real world. If anything, this concept really only works in parking lots or on racetracks where we know exactly how tight each and every corner is. As soon as we go back to the gas, we have committed to that corner. But the real world is full of a million different crazy variables. And personally, I'm not willing to commit to any corner until I can see exactly how tight it is and I can visually verify that there isn't anything potentially blocking my path or an oncoming car coming in my lane. Whoever said brake all the way to the apex probably never spent much time riding in the real world. Again, this idea really only works in parking lots or on the racetrack, where we know exactly how tight each and every corner is. On the street, I don't know where my apex is until I get deep enough into the corner to be able to see it. So the idea of braking all the way to the apex is just as unrealistic as the imaginary rule that you have to be completely off the brakes before the corner starts. Personally, I want a riding strategy that gives me the greatest number of options to deal with the crazy, weird, bonkers shit that happens on public roads. I want to enter every corner with the greatest number of options.
We also want to reduce risk. I don't care what you may have seen or heard or read. The faster a motorcycle's going, the more risk it's taking. The slower a motorcycle's going, the less risk it's taking. And part of that is because of lean angle. The faster we're going, the more lean angles required. The slower we're going, the less lean angles required. So, trail braking on public roads. We roll off the throttle to the front brake. We sneak that front brake on, and we control our rate of speed, we control our radius, and we reduce our lean angle.
Remember how I said we want to feel the weight shift over the front tire? This is important because of how grip works. Grip is a constant variable. 100% of grip is never the same amount of grip. Tire wear, temperature, rain, dust, a lot of things that we can't control determine how much grip we have. But we also have an incredible amount of control over one element of grip, load. Yamaha Champ School says we load the tire before we work the tire. And in simplest terms, grip comes from weight.
As you roll off onto that front brake lever, weight goes into the forks, the spring takes a load, weight goes into the tire spreads out. And instead of grabbing 30 points, you want to go to roll off onto that front brake, put the load in, and watch how that tire spreads out. So grab a 30 points, it's down before you know it, and here at the same lean angle is that load that we're putting in, and look at the pressure we can put on that tire as we put it in a linear fashion.
So when we slow into a corner, yes, we are using up some available grip, but we are also generating more grip by using some light front brake pressure. We're loading the tire. We live in the real world, not parking lots and not on the racetrack. So never brake in a corner abruptly, right? Freeway off-ramps that end in a stop sign. You come around a corner and there's a car driving very slowly. What about a cow in the middle of the road? A slippery metal cattle guard that crosses the entire road. I don't want to stay on the gas and add more lean as I go over the top of that. What about a corner that gets tighter the further you get into it? In fact, there are more scenarios where accelerating throughout the entire corner doesn't work than it does work.
Never brake in a corner abruptly. Now, we're not talking about emergency braking here where we straighten the bike up and brake as hard as we can. We're talking about when we're nervous, we roll off the throttle to the front brake to control our rate of forward velocity.
The number one reason for single vehicle motorcycle crashes is running wide corners. They should have entered slower, but they didn't. They should have just leaned more, but maybe they couldn't. Abruptly standing the bike upright and braking in a straight line, it was tested to only work at about 18 miles an hour because of the limitations of the width of most two-lane roads. Who's out there riding at less than 18 miles an hour? So instead of blaming riders for what they should have done, instead of teaching riders to be afraid of the front brake, instead of teaching riders never to brake in a corner, maybe we should come up with something a little bit more appropriate for real-world riding.
Earlier, lighter, longer. We go to the brakes earlier, lighter, with less pressure, and we carry the brake for longer. When forcing ourselves to stay off of the front brake, that nervousness can turn into fear, and then that fear turns into panic, and panic is when riders tend to get really scared to reach up and grab that front brake abruptly, and that's where all these problems come from. When we give ourselves permission to go to the brakes when we're nervous, to control our rate of speed, we stay out of that fear and panic mode, And even we're able to keep ourselves out of the nervousness mode. We're always riding comfortable. We're always going the speed that we're comfortable going. Here's the thing. Every vehicle in the known universe slows down to turn. Trains slow down to turn. Airplanes, boats, forklifts, even spaceships slow down to turn. If you have ever driven a car, you're slowing into corners every day. If you rode bicycles now or even as a kid, you slowed down to turn. You were trail braking. The idea that somehow motorcycles operate in some alternate universe where the laws of physics are somehow backwards, that we need to accelerate to turn, I completely don't understand where that started. It's not easier, it's not safer, and it was hard to teach it to new riders. I spent well over a decade teaching state basic rider courses. Virtually every single brand new student I taught, several thousand brand new students. The first few exercises, like the big giant oval around the perimeter of the range, every single brand new rider would slow into the corner and wait until they got through that big turn before accelerating again. But then we were required to tell all these new riders to ignore a lifetime of driving and bicycle experience and suddenly do the opposite of what they've always done. Listen, I don't care if I'm off the brakes by some specific point, and I don't care if the vanishing point is moving away from me or getting closer to me. I will not commit to any corner until I can visually see my exit and verify that it's clear. Only then will I begin to actively accelerate when the motorcycle is pointed out of the corner. If that means I'm dragging 1 or 2% of brake pressure through a corner, that's fine. If that means that I have to go back to the brakes mid-corner to make sure I get where I need to go, that's fine. Never brake in a corner abruptly. When we roll off the throttle and squeeze that front brake, it loads the front tire, it pushes that front tire into the ground, makes the contact patch bigger. So we effectively were riding on more rubber. But the front brake also controls our speed. It controls our radius. It controls the motorcycle's geometry. The front brake gives us so much control over what the motorcycle is doing, which in turn gives us more choices to deal with the unexpected. All right, so why not just downshift more before the corner and rely on engine braking? Well, we can sometimes. In some corners it works fine, but what happens if we need to slow more? Do we add more coast? Do we bang another downshift? The front brake is more precise. We can add and subtract small amounts of pressure to get the bike to do what I need it to do. Okay, so why not just use the rear brake? Again, we can sometimes, and it's fine in some corners. But as we slow, weight shifts to the front tire away from the rear tire. And it's really hard to be as precise with my boot on a foot pedal than my fingers on a lever. When I rely on my front brake and I need to slow more, I can just add a tiny bit more pressure. If the corner isn't as tight as I thought it was going to be, I can give back a tiny bit of pressure. I have more control and more choices to adapt to the exact scenario I'm dealing with in this specific situation. I'm in charge. I'm in control. I'm not bound by some imaginary parking lot rules. The problem with trail braking isn't necessarily the technique itself. It's not even that trail braking is how motorcycles are designed and engineered to turn, that some light front brake pressure makes the motorcycle want to change direction. The problem with trail braking is that there are so many crazy, wild, different definitions of the technique. Trail braking is simply trailing off the front brake as motorcycle beam decreases. It has nothing to do with braking to the apex or going into the corner faster so that we can stay on the brakes longer, especially on the street. Trail braking has nothing to do with being faster. Trail braking is about controlling our rate of speed, controlling our radius, and getting the motorcycle pointed towards the exit so we can accelerate out of the corner. If you want to keep up with your buddies, if you want to be faster, stop trying to be fast at the beginning part of the corner trail brake. Use your brake to control your radius, get pointed towards the exit, and accelerate out of the corner where it's safer, where the road is straight, where we have more visibility. On the street, trail braking is simply we go to the brakes when we're nervous and we slow until we're happy with our speed and direction. That's all it is. And quite honestly, it's that simple. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. And if not, I hope at least you found it entertaining. If you're worried about how all of this affects how much grip you have, check out this video that goes into great detail about all of that. Thank you so much for watching. Ride on and ride well.